and get us started. I just had an internet outage, but I think I should be good. All right, so yeah, we'll be live in 5, 4, 3. Okay, everybody. Hey, welcome folks here to today's Advanced Auto Retail Marketing webcast. This is a monthly webcast that we do where we get together and focus on some of the, as the name implies, more advanced topics around auto retail marketing. So it's a monthly panel that we do. It's one of 6 different webcast programs that we conduct each month under the Auto Retail Marketing Webcast series. Hang on one sec. There we go. I had a feedback loop going. So we are streaming live on YouTube, and this is being recorded. We'll feature it on the AutoConverse podcast. And of course, if you want to watch the archive, the video archive, you can as well. I am Ryan Girardi. Today is Tuesday, January 14th. Thank you for joining us. I have on with us a few folks from across the industry, including Mike, the car guy, Correra. I got Micah Birkholz up here, and Troy Blackwell just popped in as well. So you'll be seeing all of our pretty faces. Today, the focus is we're going to talk about the upcoming NADA show in Las Vegas, which is next month, February 14th through the 17th. And we're going to take a look at the keynote speakers, which include David Cameron, of course, former Prime Minister of the UK. Mary Bara is chairwoman and CEO of GM. She's a keynote speaker. And then they have comedian Kathleen Madigan. And on top of that, you have Chairman Charles Gilchrist and Vice Chairman Brett Rickert will be keynoting as well. There's over 600 exhibitors this year. They have a distinguished speakers series, and they have a new activity called the Digital Super Track, which we're going to get into a little bit as well. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Gentlemen, hey, great to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
And Troy,
thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And Troy, you're in your car, but he's promised he's not going to step on the gas. So glad you're able to make it last minute.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so Mike, you're a dealer built. You guys are exhibiting, correct? And you got some activities going on, so we'll talk about those. Micah Birkholz from Vista Dash, you guys are going to be in the JD Power booth, I think you said?
That is correct.
Okay. And then Troy, what about New Van Air? Is NADA something you exhibit at?
Yeah, we were a last minute add-on as I joined the organization. Obviously, I have a lot of experience with NADA, and that was one I wanted to get a part of. However, I was on this very long waiting list, so we will go as participants and walk through and network that way. But great venue to be at, whether you're in retail, automotive, or as a vendor. So I'm excited to go.
Cool. And I'm excited to see all of you there in about a month. Got some neat stuff lined up as well. And I should mention real quick, if you're here on the Zoom, if you're backstage on the Zoom as an attendee and you want to talk, just raise your hand. I can turn your audio on and you can chime in as well. We're maxed out on video for right now. So let's take a look at the keynote speakers. Like I said, we've got former Prime Minister David Cameron, and he offers lessons in leadership, as it says on the site, at an extraordinary and turbulent time in global affairs. Anybody seen Cameron do a keynote speech before?
No.
No. It's kind of a nice addition, I would say. And I think leadership's a good subject.
Leadership is always a good subject. I just don't necessarily know if it's something I would go to NADA for.
No, I don't think you'd go just to see David. Probably not. But he'll be there. So now Mary Bara,
That's
CEO of GM, that'll be pretty cool.
Forward to.
Let's see what she's focused on. Let's see here. And General Motors intends to create a world with 0 crashes, 0 emissions, and 0 congestion. And in her keynote address, Bara will share the company's progress toward achieving this bold vision and the critical role that dealers play in a future that will include electric and self-driving vehicles. It's probably one of my favorite subjects. let's pick that apart. 0 crashes, 0 emissions, and 0 congestion. Is that realistic or rhetoric?
I think it's realistic. I think that it's rhetoric for the next probably 2 generations.
Sure.
It's going to take at least 2 to 3 generations for a change to actually happen. But I think that that is definitely realistic, but not today.
Not anytime very soon.
Yeah, we're generations away from it. But I think it's not only a possibility, but I think that it's not just a possibility, but it's the direction that as a global industry we need to really look at going to.
Definitely. With the technology that they have, being able to coordinate a city with its flow of traffic and make sure that accidents and collisions are avoided, that's fascinating.
Well,
Yeah,
statistically,
go ahead,
Troy.
Ryan. I don't agree with you guys. There's obviously a lot of focus. AutoNation's investment with Waymo, certainly scoping, the Phoenix market and landscape. But I have to agree with you guys in terms of we're decades away. We're at the very early stages. But organizations, big companies, the big three, they'll look at it, see what they can do.
Well, GM started referring to itself as a mobility company. I think about within the last 4 to 5 years.
Ford also got a big push with mobility.
Yeah. I think they really saw where things were headed. I mean, nowadays the word mobility is tossed around like almost like a buzzword these days. I've always said, with 40,000-ish deaths a year related to, car related deaths, if we can get that down to 25 or 30, that's huge. That's a huge gap to close. So all for that.
Well, I think even when we start seeing the shift of infrastructure of cities themselves, for example, Minneapolis market, you're starting to see that it's far more a destination as opposed to a live-in, and it's not necessarily a huge shift, but we're not seeing the amount of people living in the city as much as the growth as we're starting to see the expansion. So living out of the city. Obviously, we've always had the suburb type mentality, but now it's even at a different scale where now the city is it's the theater. It is the sports arena. City of Minneapolis is planning a multi-million-dollar park system that would pretty much eliminate the ability for drive-through the city unless you're utilizing some sort of public transportation. So there's a lot of shifts that we're seeing in the industry that are giving us that capability, that probability of a zero emission, zero accident type mentality.
One of the challenges that still exists, though, is just the amount of vehicles out there currently on the road that are well beyond the years of being able to retrofit with any of this technology. I mean, here in the West, the average vehicle is like 12 years now. I just read it the other day. 12 years old, that's an old car with old technology. So getting those folks out of those cars into the newer ones with the new technology is going to have to factor into that whole plan moving forward. Just having the cars, having the infrastructure, having the technology out there and available isn't going to be enough with people that are driving 12-year-old cars.
Especially if you're hosting classic car shows with coffee displayed. I mean, that in of itself, big Mike, right? Am I right?
Yeah, there's no self-driving cars at my show.
Exactly.
Hey, Troy, let me get you in here because one of the things in Mary Bara's description here of what she's going to focus on is the critical role that dealers play in a future. The future to me is there's no such thing anymore. It's like it's right now. You've written some really good stuff lately. I'd love to hear your take on the dealer's critical role as you see it.
Yeah, I did my projections for 2020 and where dealers are today. There's a lot of buzz around omni-channel. You guys will keep hearing that word thrown out. And again, I think consumers, Ryan and I have talked quite a bit about Carvana, coming from 12 years at CarMax and now seeing how explosive Carvana is. Their market cap's $14 billion this morning, which is mind-boggling to me. And, still trying to figure out what that all means. But, hopefully a profit would be in their forecast. But it's it's going to be a race of there's a, what we'll see at NADA is a lot of platforms to introduce omni-channel type experience. And I think everybody's got their own take on it, but I really do think even the manufacturers you mentioned, obviously with Mary Bara speaking, it'll be an interesting take on what GM's doing and watching what the manufacturers do to introduce a different way of buying. But definitely, with CarMax introducing a customer experience centers, and that's really to combat really what Carvana is offering today. Their sites are big, and they're announcing, I hear a number of 2 million cars, CarMax at 800,000. That's a big numbers they're throwing out. Sure. And I think they sold 200,000 last year, Carvana did. So yeah, they're getting there quick. So that's for sure.
Yeah, I think capturing that initial market is, it was probably one of their easier tests. I think as they get closer to that CarMax level, they're going to start finding the market's just not that, there's not that much low hanging fruit. Let's move on to, I really want to get into to this new thing that they're doing at NADA, which is the super track. And I'm going to read off some of the tracks within here. We'll go back to the keynotes and whatnot in a second, but I just want to give people a glimpse of what we want to talk about. One is create an effective Facebook strategy that doesn't feel evil. That's by Matt Stoffel at 9 Clouds. I like that title. Demystifying the future of car shopping and buying, which we're just kind of getting into right now. That's with Jessica Stafford from Cox Automotive. Digital marketing, making the right decisions. Drive reach, engagement, and profits with digital retailing. There's that word again, digital retailing. That's Mike Barrington from Cox Automotive as well. So before too much time goes by, I think that's where I want to shift some of our focus. Just to add to that, what the other keynotes, other than the chairman, who I'd mentioned, Charles Gilchrist, and Vice Chairman Rhett Rickert, is also comedian Kathleen Madigan. Anybody familiar with Kathleen?
Yeah, I think she was on a show or something not too long ago, if I remember right. Wasn't she?
I'm not familiar with it. I didn't look her up.
She's like some biggest comedian. Yeah. I'd rather just see Joe Webb up with a microphone. If I'm going to see a comedian in automotive, just get Joe Webb up there. He's the funniest guy in the car business and speaks with a ton of experience. So
it's all relevant to the people that are there, the audience.
Exactly. So, and that wasn't a Dealer Knows consulting plug. That's just a Joe Webb, funny guy, one of the best guys you'll ever meet. So get him up. That's
a good point. That's a good point. Maybe he should shoot for that. Shoot for that. So before we dive into those topics, they have a distinguished speakers series. Let me know. I think, Micah, you recognize Eric Qualman, best-selling author and keynote speaker. He published What Happened in Vegas Stays on YouTube.
Yeah. He also did what, I don't know if you remember this, but years ago when social media marketing and reputation management first kicked off, he did he wrote Socialnomics, and then the Social Media Revolution. He did this big video that talked about the growth of different types of media and the explosive growth of social media. How long did it take to get to 50 million users, whether it was radio, TV, smartphones to social media. And it was a really great video. And when I used to originally do social media training for when I was back with Cobalt, the good old CDK company back in the day, that was a video that I would kick off every single training consulting. And so Eric Coleman, he did some great stuff, early on. So it would be interesting to see him and what his current take on social strategy is. With so many big players that have unhorsed Facebook and Twitter as communication and social media tools. So I'd be interested to see his new perspective for 2020.
Sure. Well, I'm sure it'll be an energetic presentation by him. Who else? We have Kevin Brown.
In a booth is not being able to go out to these sessions that you hear about, and they look interesting, but
you don't get to see them. Yeah, strapped to the booth, man. Don't miss those days. let me read off who else is there. We got Kevin Brown, motivational keynote speaker and author. He's going to talk about the hero effect, creating a culture of heroes at every level. And then Seth Madison, building next generation enterprises for a next generation workforce. And then the final one, actually, there's two more distinguished speakers. You've got Ross Schaefer, and he's going to be talking about success. And then Mike Robbins, the power of appreciation, inspires success, engagement, and perspective. So, yeah, like you said, you guys are all going to be tied to a booth. So I guess I'll have to do my best to correspond for you.
Bring back Keynote.
So let's get, and at the end, guys, I want to get into what Dealer Built and Vista Dash and Troy, like you said, New Veneer's not exhibiting, but you'll be there for some networking. So, okay. Mike, let's start with you. Of the digital super tracks that I read off, which one stood out for you? And if you need me to reread them, I will. That first
one. And like Micah said, I'm looking forward to just hearing the feedback on his current take on things. Social and digital, as you know, is kind of a passion of mine. I've been avid and very involved with the growth of it since about 2005 when I first stumbled into it. And even though it's not necessarily something that I'm actively doing for the dealers that I work with now, it's just a passion of mine. It's like a hobby. I watch it, I learn from it, I'm fascinated by it. So anything that's new and current is just interesting to me.
I'm curious why he put the phrase that does create an effective Facebook strategy that doesn't feel evil. I mean, where's that coming from?
You hear that all the time. How many times has someone told you, oh, I was just talking about a suitcase the other day and now my feed is completely filled with Samsonite ads. How do they know this stuff? It's creepy. It's evil. It's easy to understand how a customer perceives it as evil. So that's a great way to get somebody's attention. How you can create a Facebook ad campaign that doesn't seem evil. I want to know.
I'd be curious to look at Nine Clouds marketing just because, I watch, I'm on the B2B side and I watch vendors try to get in front of dealers. I had a guy contact me today. He's like, oh, I bet you can help us get in front of dealers. And I think when I see that, I'm like, dealers are the same way. And Troy, you've been on the retail side.
Both sides now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, get your pitch, get your ads away from me. Yet that's what we do. We just tend to shove our brands down people's throats. So you're saying the consumer feels the same way?
Yeah, all those years spent on the dealership side as an operator, dealing with vendors as they come in, regardless of what capacity. Now I find myself in this role of New Veneer, talking to these former colleagues, I guess they would be of mine. And it's not very easy at times, right? So, and I think you guys have all experienced that one way or another. But I'm having a lot of fun, and I'm sure I'll get a chance to talk a little bit more about it. But yeah, and from both sides.
Go ahead. I'm just bringing something up on my end. But Micah, how about you? Of those super tracks, any appeal to you?
So as much as I'm going to concur on that doesn't feel evil, sounds like a great creeptastic session, and Matt Stoffels from Minnesota. So I think that got to give a shout out to a guy from Minnesota. I am interested in seeing leveraging data and digital giants to impact your dealership. So not only utilizing, Google, Facebook, but seeing what type of Oracle data that they pull in, and seeing what other aspects they're going to touch base on, whether it be known IP, known data sets, known consumer behavior, transactional insights. I'm really curious to see that, and it's not so much just for the fact that. That's what we talk about a lot at our company. But when it comes down to effectively utilizing social media marketing, having that known consumer data and what their interests and likes are, leveraging that big data is a key piece to that. So often we look at things that are siloed, and our marketing can't be so siloed. So I want to see how they tie everything together. And so leveraging that data, digital giants seems like something that would be great. Now, the other piece about that is that it's specific to tier 3. where a lot of the plays that we've seen historically utilizing big data has always been focused on tier 1 strategy and tier 2 strategy, especially when we're looking at the sheer volume of reach that they're trying to persuade and try to leverage influence. So how are they going to utilize big data to the tier 3 level is going to be an interesting play that I think would be fun to watch.
Troy, you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, the only thing, Ryan, that I'd add is some other speakers that you didn't list. There's a day that, Mike Maroney's speaking, and he was a mentor of mine. So certainly we'll go seek him out and watch his presentation. He's always good to be in the audience and listen to. Ron Fry is a part of that group. Cheryl Miller, the CEO of AutoNation. So it's really my former executive team that I worked under up on stage presenting. And so it's good to be, probably on the outside in the audience this go around and just listening to what their visions are going into the next few years.
And these are the folks you mentioned have like just standard speaking sessions. Is what you're referring to?
It's day one, the 14th. So I think it's a block session from like 1 to 5. So there's probably I think there's 10 speakers that fall in that timeline. So, but each one of those ones I just named are part of that.
Yeah, the list I was reading from, there's a section on the site called distinguished speakers, which, as I said when we started off, are probably the non-automotive speakers that are at the event. And I just shared, folks, the links to the things that we've been talking about around the NADA show. They're in the live chat console. Whether you're tuned in live or watching the recording, you should be able to access that. Let me do a real quick orientation. I'm Ryan Girardi. That was Troy Blackwell from New Van Air talking. Also with us is Mike, the car guy, Correra from Dealer Built, and Micah Birkholz from Vista Dash. And we're here for our monthly Advanced Auto Retail Marketing Webcast panel. This is one of 6 different webcast panels that we do each month. And the whole idea is just to come in here and focus on different subject matters and look at different aspects of the industry at unique angles. Guys, if I could, I want to throw in there the one: drive reach, engagement, and profits with digital retailing. I just released a podcast, and I don't know what.
That's surprising.
Yeah, right. Well, okay. Let me finish the sentence. The latest podcast I released, I think it was yesterday, is called "Some Would Call It Digital Retailing," and it's a great conversation. It's from my guest that I had on the show in early November, and he shared with us his car shopping journey of finding a car on eBay from a dealer out of state. So he's in Chicago and the dealer is down in Florida. And he shared the whole process of vetting that dealer out, looking at reviews, looking at his website. All the communication was done through text messaging. And then at the end, I found this funny. The dealer emailed him the documents to print, sign, and fax, but he's a digital guy, so he converted them to DocuSign and did them electronically, which makes sense, right? But the point is this: the process started in eBay, which I think we could arguably say is the first party to list cars online for sale that you could buy, right? The true, what we call digital retailing now. He didn't use any sort of digital retailing widget, but the whole process was done digitally. He didn't even talk to the dealer until after the transaction and the delivery was made. And that's why I said some would call this digital retailing. And it stood out for me. And I hope you guys, I hope those listening get a chance to listen to that podcast or even watch the whole story, because it's great. But that's the one that stood out for me. This is with Mike Barrington from Cox: Drive Reach, Engagement, and Profits with Digital Retailing. So let's talk about that. And Troy, it sounds like you want to chime in on that. What's running through your mind on that?
No, I just, I have a lot of passion for it. Obviously, I think you have to tailor your new process to what customers are looking for today. And I think we have to evolve. And if we don't evolve, you're going to get left behind. And, that's really where my head goes. Sometimes we get stuck in our old habits of just get the customer in. And that doesn't work today. You got to figure out, how does your customer want to consume? And in this scenario, this guy was happy to do everything without a widget on his own, all the way to getting paperwork printed, and even suggesting, hey, a DocuSign would work to my favor. You're buying houses this way. Why not buy a car this way? So I think you can't box yourself into a single process. This is the way. You have to be open to tailor it to how the customer wants to consume the product. They may want the product delivered to their office. They may want the car delivered to their house, or they may want to go in, feel it, test drive it. And some customers will be there, and they'll always want to buy that way. But I think you have to have a process in place to tailor to that. Because there's a lot of companies out there, Roadster being one of them, great company, great process that they've built. But again, there's a lot of integration that goes with that with some of the DMS providers. So, but there's again, happy because I love that the industry is getting there. I grew up in CarMax, and I think they were way ahead of their time at that point. And now Carvana's come to the scene, as I mentioned earlier, and there's some great private caps out there trying to do something the same way. So,
what's going through my mind as you're talking about that is Carvana offers, I think, one buying experience. They don't custom tailor the buying experience. They're offering one process. So, which kind of flies in the face to what you just said, not in a negative way. I'm actually saying, I think what you're saying is true. And I hear everybody say it. You got to tailor the process. Yeah. And Carvana comes out and says, nope, this is the only process you need. I mean, that could be a limiting factor for them.
Well, and they've also figured out some of the logistics. That's the other side of it. I was recently at their recon facility in Phoenix, and that place is enormous, 100 acres. Amazing amount of cars that go through there, and just to watch their process. But yeah, from a consumer side, I've had a team buy cars through there just to kind of walk me through their process. But again, I kind of recall in that process that we were able to do certain things, have the car delivered to a restaurant and take delivery versus at a home or work. So there is some definition there.
And they're going after a specific audience of car buyer. They're not looking for the guy that wants to come in and have the retail experience with looking at multiple different vehicles. So they're offering an alternative, but to that specific person. So they probably only feel like they need to offer that one alternative to that buyer.
Yeah, and you're probably spot on there, Mike. I just think what's going to happen is if they're at 200,000 a day and Carvana's or CarMax at 800,000 and they want to get to 2 million, they probably will have to tailor their process to get to that kind of number.
And I think we need to expand that idea of giving customers that option and away from just the retail, the sales side too. We need to remember that the fixed op customers are the ones that are really driving the profits of stores these days. I mean, front end profits are painfully low, and the fixed end customers still have that same desire to have the access to their service advisor through text or through a medium that they're comfortable with. So by expanding and increasing that technology and incorporating it into fixed ops, those are the dealerships that are really, really going to see increased success as we move forward.
And you're right, Mike. I think the thing is the relationship that Carvana has. Now, I buy a car from California, I get it to Florida. It's got an imperfection, whether it's cosmetic or an engine knock or whatever it may be. They're not going to ship the car all the way back to California. They're going to say, hey, take it to the Chevy store, which they have no association with. And then, they look at you like, wow, this is a great discovery right here. It needs this, and this. And, you're talking about the margins, it'll erode your margin pretty quick. And there's that relationship piece. So yeah, there's another side of this equation for sure.
I'm going to read the description from that. that workshop, Drive Reach Engagement Profits with Digital Retailing. In this workshop, we'll explore how you should evaluate and measure digital retailing solutions. Keep in mind, this is coming from Cox Automotive. To ensure you meet your goals of delivering a satisfying customer experience, increasing online leads, boosting sales conversion rates, and generating more profit. I mean, that's a paragraph packed with everything a dealer wants to hear.
I thought we aren't supposed to use the word leads anymore.
No, they're back to using leads again.
Ah, okay.
No, it's an ongoing moving target of are we a lead provider? Are we a media source? How do we generate leads? Well, and I think the issue that they've ran across is by stating that and they, not Cox, but just vendors in general, by calling themselves lead providers or media sources, they've never really had the proper tracking in place to evaluate it. And so now with digital retailing, they have the capability of coming out with a glorified payment calculator that can be properly tagged with GTM. And so now you can actually see what call to actions, what the abandon rate during the platform engagement is, what type of data is actually collected, what the form completion rate, button click rate. You can start seeing more things than they used to by now having a digital platform that is completely scripted out, as opposed to just a native payment calculator. So it's just taking the same thing that they've always had, but being able to add a little bit of data and metrics behind it to show if there's any type of profitability and or conversion that can be associated with it, which once again goes back to saying that it is still a payment calculator. In many cases, digital retailing, and I'm sure that's probably not a popular conversation to have, but from a consumer's perspective, that's what they're doing. And a dealer is looking at, well, I'm trying to get more leads. Well, there you go. You digital retailing, you got everything you need all wrapped up in one. But from a consumer's perspective, is that's what's actually being executed. And I think that piece is something that cannot be given from somebody at a dealership. We're too close to the selling aspect and not close enough to the buying aspect from a consumer's perspective.
Good point.
I'd write that down. I got to make a note of that. Can you rephrase that?
We're too close to the selling perspective as opposed to the buying consumer's perspective. I don't remember the last time I bought a car like a consumer. I mean, 20 years in the business, 20 plus years in the business, I wanted to buy a car. I'd turn to my general manager. He'd tell me what the price was. And I drove home in it that afternoon because I took it in on trade or what have you, or it's a new vehicle and I sell them. So I just did it. And for me, my buying experience, even now as a vendor, I call up my buddy or I call up a friend and say, hey, this is what I want. And they get the paperwork ready. A regular consumer neither has the confidence or the propensity or ability to do something along those lines. So having digital retailing doesn't necessarily solve the consumer's wall and barrier that they have with the dealer. It might be like a window, but it's not a gateway. It's not a doorway. It's just a small window right now. They want truly transactional websites. Digital retailing is still a ways away from that being a possibility. I think your scenario with eBay and the podcast that you're referring to, I think that's far more similar to what we're looking at, DocuSign, delivery, and executing everything that way, as opposed to a website that has a lead gen calculator or a lead gating system. So,
if anything has come out of the whole digital retailing trend, is that the process, it always comes back to the process, which Troy, you were speaking to. And I think what you said, Troy, if I were to summarize it, is you actually need different processes to cater to different consumer interests, ultimately to create that experience. But people have different needs and you have to be able to adapt and tailor to that. And you need to have that versatility. And you know, again, going back to the workshop, it's like, here's how digital retailing, again, it's like, here's how this widget is going to help you with this process and maximize profits, which unfortunately is what a dealer wants to hear. It comes down to the process, not the technology.
Yep.
Well, even from if we look at the generational studies that can be done, there's I think was it the Car Guru Summit had the Dealer Socket Summit that they had. User Summit recently had a speaker on generational studies, the difference between the Boomer generation, Gen Z, Millennials, and what they found was that it's not so much a generational thing, but there's a lot more similarities across the generations based upon age breakdown, as opposed to millennial versus boomer versus Gen Z. And a consumer that could be a millennial within that age group may actually act and purchase more along the lines of a boomer based upon they're from a rural market. Family values is a different concept that they're used to. They grew up on the family farm. And that mentality is, I go into the dealership, I don't go online, and I negotiate, because negotiating is the only way I'm going to get a good value. It was good enough for my father and my grandfather. And that's how some millennials, based upon that age group, are going to buy. So by saying that you're forced into a specific model for buying, I think that's great for that brand to carve out a niche, but it cannot translate to every single store or every single brand that way. There has to be entrance based upon catering to the generational buying processes within our marketplace.
Boom.
There's no absolutes to a demographic. There's no absolutes.
None.
Now what studies show, and I'm not going to cite which studies, but I do a lot of reading and research, is that what we classify as a millennial or Gen Z buying preference becomes the norm in due time. Meaning I'm a Gen Xer. I think most of us are Gen Xers. Over time, we will embrace the newer trend of buying preference in time. Senior citizens, the greatest generation of all time, will start to embrace those buying trends. I mean, heck, my dad, who's 74, is sending me Christmas gifts to the family through Amazon, right? Like, he's adapted. He just started his Instagram account. I said, Dad, too many emails, man. Just get an Instagram account and I'll just hit the like button once in a while. And he did. And he's adapting. I get a kick out of that.
That's awesome.
Hey, last call here for those that are on the Zoom backstage. You can't see if you want to chime in with anything. We're about 35 minutes in, and I like to keep this under 30 or 40 minutes. So raise your hand if you want to chime in. Troy, just to reiterate, Nuven Air, you'll be there with your team. So we will definitely look for you there. I imagine your mission is pretty much strategic business development, right?
Yeah, have it all mapped out. So now that you two guys are going to be there, I'll make sure I stop by your booth and say hi. So
Please do.
Yeah, definitely. So it's nice to meet you guys. And no, it's a good opportunity to network, as I said. And we had a great show at SEMA and a lot of leads for us at that show. And then again, this is really in our wheelhouse. So again, excited to get out there and see you guys.
Mike C, when he said SEMA, I looked at you to see if your eyes popped.
Boom.
Boom.
They did.
Mike Correra is always there. Micah, tell us about Vista Dash. You'll be in the JD Power booth. What booth?
Yeah, we're going to be in the JD Power booth. Booth number 923C is the booth number. We've had a partnership with JD Power and their data sets for the past 2 years. We look at a lot of the transactional insights and give a little bit more regional data, propensity and ability, demographics, and how that correlates to marketing campaigns and zip code and regional data. So by partnering with them, it gives us kind of a platform to maintain that vendor neutrality and just looking at the data, what's working, what's not working. So we're super excited that we're going to be at the JD Power booth for the second year in a row, and really excited just to share some of the changes and updates that we've done with our platform and some of the partners that are going to be there. So it's always good to say hi and network and maybe go for a half marathon run Saturday morning. Am I right there, Mike?
Saints and Sinners. I'll be there.
There we go. Yeah, we got a group of car guy buddies, car gal buddies that decided to do the Sinners and Saints half marathon race Saturday morning. So we'll get 13 miles in and then spend the rest of the day on our feet
Working away.
So it's gonna be a good
How
time.
crazy are we?
Yeah.
I'll see you guys at the finish line with a beer.
There you go. I'll be with you, Troy.
Yeah.
Micah, thanks for explaining the relation there to JD Power. That makes sense. So Mike, Dealer Built, let us know what you got some neat stuff going on. You got a reception, a hockey game, booth.
We're going to be at the booth. Obviously, we're still talking about the consumer experience DMS, which is the industry's only DMS to fully incorporate all the tools for today's consumer experience, texting, video, photo enabled, MPIs, all the neat stuff. It's all within the system. So you don't have to log out, log into a different website to do your thing. It's all incorporated into one. We're going to be doing, we have an exciting opportunity we've been given. We're partnering up with the folks on your hat there, Owen Moon and the Fixed Ops Digital guys. Also, my good friend Steve Ressler with Drive Centric, the Live with Drive guy, and the Wild Hair, and a few other companies. We're going to be hosting a night at the Las Vegas Golden Knights hockey game for a number of dealers and partners that we work with. So that's going to be really, really exciting. It's the first time Dealer Built's done a massive event. Everybody goes to NADA for the after hours events, whether it's the karaoke or dinner or party, or last year in San Francisco, they had like a cruise on the bay. And, there's always these fun, wild things that are going on, and they're great opportunities to network and really work with a lot of great people. And this is our first venture into that world. And we've partnered up with some outstanding companies, and it should be really fun. And if I can just say really quick, I'm really actually excited about NADA this year. In years past, it's always been, kind of the same people that go, and last year, the vibe just did not seem to be really exciting. But as I've gone to the dealers that I work with, and I have about 98 stores that are in my account group, and I've touched base with almost all of them over the last 12 months. And almost every single one of them, the service manager or the GM has had a list of things that they're going to NADA this year to accomplish, whether it's buying some equipment for their shop. I got a dealership yesterday I was at, he was telling me about, he's got $80,000 he needs to spend on some lifts and some equipment for the shop. There's just a lot of excitement about NADA this year. And I'm really, really thinking that it's going to be a good show. A lot of people are going there intent on looking at new products, whether it's a DMS or a CRM or some type of tools for their consumer experience, or actual equipment for their fixed ops side, whether it's racks, tools, lifts. It just really seems like a lot more people are going there focused with an intent than in years past. So I really, really think for all the vendors that are going to be set up, Vista Dash, Fixed Ops Dealer, wherever they're at, it's going to be busy. I really think it.
Well, this has come up over, from digital dealer to driving sales, that attendance was relatively lower and it seems to continue to be lower. So I know NADA draws about 20,000 people about the attendance. Now that includes exhibitors. There's 600 exhibitors, 600 plus. You got to figure an average of 10 employees per exhibitor if you take the large and the small. So that's 25% of the attendance right there. And it's hard to get a pulse on what attendance feels like, especially if you just focus on the expo hall, right? A lot of people NADA is different. I think everyone ends up in the expo hall, whereas these smaller events, a lot of people bypass the exhibiting booths. But we'll see. Look, the car business is doing great. We're selling 17 million new cars, 40 million used. Price, values are good. Other than India and China, which are, on a slump with their car sales, it's a good industry right now, and just lots of change and innovation. Mike, I don't want to. You kind of glossed over the whole hockey thing. You've got, from what I understand, because I've talked to you and Owen and Jason, there's like 8 companies.
Yes.
Each inviting about 25 dealers. And it was you or Jason, brought up the fact that most will want to bring their spouse. So that might cut the number in half, but 8 times 25 is 400. So I think you're expecting at least 200 to 300 dealerships.
We've got two
dealers.
flights, two levels of seating reserved at the Golden Knights hockey game, so it should be exciting.
Oh, it'd be fun.
Wow.
I think it's a great idea. It's a great idea.
And we're partnered with some great folks. All the companies that are going to be there are all outstanding and leaders in their specific areas, and it's just going to be a really great evening. Unfortunately, because we are reserving it for our dealers and the people that we really want to be there, I actually don't get to go. I set the whole thing up, but I don't get to go. But that's all right.
That's very selfless of you. We commend you for that. It'll probably be a pretty exciting time.
It's going to be fun.
Well, folks, Mike Correra, Micah Birkholz, Troy Blackwell, gentlemen, thanks so much for jumping in and taking part of this conversation.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We'll see you guys in Las Vegas.
Looking forward to it.
Las Vegas. So hang tight, guys. I'm going to just do a quick wind down orientation for folks that are watching. Again, folks, this is streamed live on our YouTube channel. So appreciate you stopping by if you're on the live stream. And if you are watching the video replay, thank you for doing that. Feel free to leave some comments, hit the like button, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. Again, this is featured on the AutoConverse podcast. So if you're into podcasting, get subscribed. Just search for AutoConverse, all one word, through your preferred podcast app. We were talking briefly about the buying trends and preferences of Gen Z and millennials. Well, tomorrow on the Mobility Tech and Connectivity Show, I have 321 Ignition founder and CEO Lyman Savvy coming on, and that's precisely what we're going to be talking about, are these buying preferences and behaviors of Gen Z and millennial car buyers, and how today's website platforms interface with that. So that's live right here at 2:00 Central tomorrow as well. Well, that's about it. If you like what we're doing, feel free to sign up and register. It's a one-time registration here for the Advanced Auto Retail Marketing Webcast Series. We do this pretty much the second or third Tuesday of every month. And by registering, you can log into the Zoom, just like a conventional webinar, and participate with us there. And you can also be here on the panel with these great group of guys as you like. And head on over to autoconversion.net, look for auto retail under the webcast menu. We've got 6 different sessions, each of them every month. They each require their own registration. You can participate in as many as you like. Just beware of all the emails that you will get. All right, guys, we're all done. Let's go ahead and hit stop on our cameras, and we're going to go offline. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the week.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys.
See you soon. Take it easy, Micah.
Take care, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Yes, you will.